I want the whole country to look at this, because this is the Attorney General of the United States, whose job is law enforcement. We've never had a witness who has misunderstood our rules and been unable to conform his or her conduct to our rules before. We have only 5 minutes, and so we use our time to ask you specific questions.
How long are you giving me to
Excuse me, I'm not yielding to you right now. I'd like that second restored too. So, Ms. Bondi, the way it works is we ask you a question and you answer it. And if you go off on a wild goose chase, another tangent, you start reading statistics or you start talking about stuff going on in our district. And by the way, I invite you to my district. Come to my district, but that's not what we're here to do today.
Buckle up. The Senate Judiciary hearing just turned into one of the most revealing, mask-off moments we've seen in a long time. Congressman Jamie Raskin went straight at Attorney General Pam Bondi with serious constitutional and ethical questions, Trump's lawsuits against the government, and the treatment of Epstein survivors. And instead of clear, straight answers, we got deflection, tension, interruptions, and a whole lot of uncomfortable dodging. This wasn't polite debate. This was a brutal, high-stakes clash, and Bondi spent most of it swinging back instead of engaging. Let's break it down. No spin, no excuses, just the raw truth.
Attorney General Bondi, and you said it to me personally, that you take the personal security of every member of Congress seriously and that people can contact you about that. And in these times, that's a very serious matter. So I thank you for that. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 7 of the Constitution is the Domestic Emoluments Clause. And it says that the president is limited to his salary in office and cannot receive any other money from the federal government while he's in office. It cannot be increased by $1. This president is the first president in U.S. history who has repeatedly sued the federal government for $230 million for the judicial search warrant at Mar-a-Lago, which was perfectly lawful and was never struck down. But now he's suing the IRS for $10 billion. He's suing the IRS for $10 billion, which I think is around 80% of its annual budget, because his tax returns were leaked. And they were illegally leaked by a private contractor who actually is in prison now, Charles Littlejohn. But he wants $10 billion. Now, I want to ask you the question of whether you think it would violate the Domestic Emoluments Clause for you to settle that $10 billion case or any of the other claims that the president has made against the government. He himself has remarked, it's interesting because I'm the one that makes the deal, right? And he says, I kind of have to work it out with myself. Do you think it would violate the Domestic Emoluments Clause for the president to work out a deal from people who are his subordinates under his unitary executive theory to get money in one of these cases?
I'm not going to discuss pending litigation.
Okay, so theoretically you're saying because his privacy rights were violated in that tax case, and they were. I'm with the president on that. I mean, his Mar-a-Lago thing is ridiculous, but there's no doubt that his tax returns, despite the fact that he promised to release them, despite the fact that every other president released the tax returns, he suffered embarrassment when it showed that he hadn't paid taxes for several years, and he had a right for that not to happen. Now, I want to turn back to the Epstein survivors, because President Trump may have been a little bit embarrassed by the release of those tax returns. How much do you think the claims of these survivors are worth? As the good congressman from Kentucky just pointed out, there were lots of survivors who had decided, for reasons of their own, never to release their names. That determination was represented to people in Congress, and we built it into our federal law that their names could not be released, and yet you published their names, their phone numbers, their addresses, personally identifying information. If Donald Trump can get $10 billion theoretically from the Department of Justice, how much should these people get for a far worse violation of their privacy rights and a far greater danger established to them in their lives?
Do you even know who Chase Mulligan is? You're so obsessed with, you don't, do you?
I'm going to teach you the rules again. You're the Attorney General of the United States. We have rules here.
You're obsessed with him.
You're the Attorney General of the United States.
You're
the rules,
obsessed with Donald Trump. You have Trump derangement syndrome.
Mr. Chairman,
Chase
I'd like my time
Mulligan will be
restored. I'd like my time
next week
restored.
in your district. In your district, and you don't even know about it, about keeping children safe from online predators.
Time belongs to the gentleman from Maryland. The gentleman can proceed.
Yeah, and I want the whole country to look at this. Because this is the Attorney General of the United States, whose job is law enforcement. We've never had a witness who has misunderstood our rules and been unable to conform his or her conduct to our rules before. We have only 5 minutes, and so we use our time to ask you specific questions.
How long are you giving me to answer?
Excuse me, I'm not yielding to you right now. I'd like that second restored too. So, Ms. Bondi, the way it works is we ask you a question and you answer it. And if you go off on a wild goose chase, another tangent, you start reading statistics or you start talking about stuff going on in our district. And by the way, I invite you to my district. Come to my district, but that's not what we're here to do today. Okay? So, and you do that, then we're allowed to say we reclaim our time. At that point, you have to be quiet. You have no choice. You have to be quiet. So I hope you understand the rule at this point. Now, here's what I want to ask you. You're in law enforcement. We've seen all kinds of evidence of crimes. And when we go over to the Department of Justice for the 4 computers for every member of Congress, we see more evidence of crimes. Will you create a joint task force of the Department of Justice and governors and state attorney generals and district attorneys across the country to investigate the crimes that have taken place against these victims and more than 1,000 like them? The DOJ is not doing its job. Will you create a task force with state and local law enforcement to make that happen?
Gentlelady can respond if she wants to.
Thank you, Chairman. He called Chase Mulligan a wild goose chase and didn't even know who he was. He is a defendant in your own district who preyed on girls.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, you know what? If he were part of the Epstein investigation, you wouldn't do anything about it.
Online chat rooms and committed sextortion. Yet he didn't even know in your tiny little district who he was.
Mr. Chairman, she's embarrassing you.
He's about to be
This is your committee, and she is embarrassing you.
Shame on you.
The time of the gentleman has expired. I would remind the committee that last Congress, Secretary Mayorkas was here numerous times, and he wouldn't answer our questions, even when we sent them to him ahead of time in writing. So that's what we've had to deal with. I think the Attorney General is doing.
He wasn't throwing random political jabs. He was raising real constitutional and ethical red flags. The Domestic Emoluments Clause isn't some obscure technicality. It's a core safeguard in the Constitution designed to stop a president from personally profiting off the federal government. When Raskin points out Trump sued the federal government for massive sums, including a staggering $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS, that's not just political theater. That's a legitimate legal and constitutional question about conflicts of interest. Can a president negotiate settlements with his own subordinates inside the executive branch? Bondi's response: refusing to discuss pending litigation. Technically a standard legal answer, but it also feels like a convenient shield. The question wasn't just about case details. It was about whether settling such claims violates the Constitution. That's a straight-up legal ethics question. And as Attorney General, the nation's top legal authority, she's supposed to grapple with it. Dodging that doesn't exactly inspire confidence that the Justice Department is willing to tackle uncomfortable constitutional issues when they involve the president. Then Raskin pivots to something even more serious: Epstein survivors. Their names and personal information were released, exposing them to danger, harassment, and trauma. He makes a powerful comparison. If Trump can theoretically claim $10 billion for a privacy violation over tax returns, what about survivors whose safety and anonymity were legally protected and then violated? That's not a gotcha. That's a moral question about whose rights actually matter in this system. Bondi's tone during this whole exchange stands out for all the wrong reasons. Instead of engaging with the substance, it devolves into procedural arguments, interruptions, and accusations of Trump derangement syndrome. That kind of partisan language might play well in media clips, but for the Attorney General, it's deeply unprofessional. This is the nation's top law enforcement officer being questioned by Congress. People expect clarity, seriousness, and respect for the process, not partisan talking points. Raskin's frustration is telling too. He has to explain basic committee rules on the fly, reminding the Attorney General that when time is reclaimed, she has to stop talking. That's not a good look for someone running the Justice Department. Whether you agree with Raskin politically or not, the fact that a witness, especially the Attorney General, can't follow basic oversight procedures raises real concerns about respect for congressional oversight and the rule of law. And then there's the concrete policy proposal, forming a joint task force to investigate crimes against Epstein victims and others. That's about coordinating federal, state, and local law enforcement to pursue justice for victims of serious crimes. Instead of a clear yes or no, the exchange spirals into arguments about districts, defendants, and personal attacks. For people watching at home, that probably feels like Washington dysfunction at its absolute worst. Serious issues getting lost in political noise. This moment matters because it shows the gaping divide between what Americans expect from the Justice Department and what they're actually seeing. The Attorney General is supposed to be above politics, focused on law enforcement, victims, and the Constitution. But exchanges like this make it look like even the top legal office is deeply entangled in partisan fights and invasive when it comes to uncomfortable questions. For everyday Americans, this isn't just about Pam Bondi or Jamie Raskin. It's about whether the system is willing to hold powerful people accountable, whether victims are taken seriously, and whether constitutional safeguards still mean anything when they're inconvenient for those in power. When Congress asks direct questions about conflicts of interest and victims' rights, people want direct answers, not deflections and political slogans. And honestly, moments like this are why public trust in institutions keeps dropping. People see these hearings and think, are they actually solving anything, or is this just political theater? If the Attorney General can't clearly explain where the Justice Department stands on these constitutional and moral questions, it leaves a vacuum of trust, and that's dangerous for a democracy. I want to know what you think. Do you believe Bondi handled this appropriately, or should the Attorney General be more transparent and direct when Congress raises constitutional concerns and victims' rights issues? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. Did Raskin land the harder hits, or did Bondi hold her ground? Smash that like button if you're fed up with the deflections. Hit subscribe, ring the bell. We're breaking down these brutal exchanges and exposing the truth every single day. America first. Always. Catch you in the next one.